fully vaccinated against COVID-19, along with your ID. Same goes for bars, cinemas, or gyms, anywhere in Ontario. Provincial officials have now fine-tuned the rules and are preparing for what to do when someone breaks them.
There will be bylaw enforcement officers that will be available, that will be doing a lot of the monitoring there and making sure that businesses conform as we're expecting individuals to conform to the requirements.
The people on the front lines of checking your vaccination status will be the staff.
As with anything, there's going to be startup complications, particularly with the very small businesses, so the greater clarity, the better.
Some of that clarity came today. The province says you won't have to prove you're vaccinated if you're on a patio and just need to go inside to pay or use a washroom. We also learned more about Ontario's rules for medical exemptions.
Very, very few exemptions that are listed, and the registrar has defined that you must put the exact reason for medical exemption.
Officials said they're aware that people may try to fake doctor's notes claiming they're exempt, but warned that doing so is an offense.
But who's verifying the legitimacy of such a note? Who's verifying the legitimacy of the exemptions that are being provided? It doesn't make any sense.
Ontario is not planning to have its digital proof of vaccination ready until late October, putting it 2 months behind Quebec. In the meantime, your proof is a scanned or paper copy of this. Since the government announced the vaccine passport plan earlier this month, demand for shots has increased. If that pace continues, 90% of eligible Ontarians will have received at least one dose by the end of October. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
This vaccine passport system comes into play next week, and it'll be yet another big shift, another new rule for businesses. And for many, it's overwhelming. For more now, we're joined live by Matthew Johnston. He's the owner of Artisan Grill, both in Amherstburg and Windsor, at Devonshire Mall, and that's where he joins me now live. Hi, Matthew.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us. First of all, how are you feeling about this new passport system?
You know what, it's mixed feelings. Of course, our number one priority is always to keep our guests safe, but it puts us in an awkward position to be monitoring and policing people's, personal medical conditions or medical history. So, puts us in a little bit of an interesting, challenging position.
And so what does this mean? Will you indeed be following the rules as they've been outlined by the province?
Yeah, compliance is never an option, unfortunately. We're going to have to follow it, to a T. It just makes it challenging for our guests. I guess I ask people just to try to get through this as quick as possible. If you can get vaccinated, please do so. And I hope that everybody feels safe coming to the Artisan Grill.
And how does it feel knowing that you might have to turn some customers away with all this?
Yeah, so at heart, we're all hospitality professionals here. For us, it's all about taking care of everybody without any kind of discrimination, regardless of its financial or social status, stuff like that. So we like to make sure that we treat everyone fairly and equally. So it puts us in an awkward situation to have to think about denying somebody service when the only reason is a medical concern, but at the same time, again, number one goal is to keep our guests safe. So, like I said, compliance isn't an option. It's definitely going to add some, labor to the budget and, squeeze already tight margins. But at the end of the day, we have to do what we have to do collectively to try to get through this as quick as possible. I'm hoping that down the road that they only have to use these types of measures in more hotspot areas where there are active community spread or more serious spread in the community. Hopefully that comes sooner than later.
And can you tell us a little bit more about how you're actually going to go about checking people on their way in? How are you preparing for that?
Yeah, so basically what we're doing is we're having to staff a couple individual extra people on the host department as well as management. We've also been discussing potentially having, a security individual just in case there's an incident or something. So, like I said, we're looking at really a financial hit that, all restaurants are going to have to take to be able to kind of process all the people, especially at peak times, try not to make the guests wait at the door and stuff like that. So we're going to have to try to process people as quick as possible and have a lot of oversight as we move forward.
Yeah, and can you tell us a little bit more about, how you think this vaccine passport is going to impact your business moving forward?
Yeah, so I do think it will reduce at some levels the people coming in, and not necessarily because they're unvaccinated, but maybe they don't want to deal with the hassle of waiting in line. That's why we've made those moves to increase the labor budget in the host department and management to be able to process people quickly so that the lineups and waits don't keep people waiting around for too long. I'm hoping it doesn't. I'm hoping at the same time it does make people feel more comfortable that they are amongst people that are all vaccinated, for all the extra cleaning, sanitization, the process we've taken for our COVID action plan to make sure that people are safe inside the building, I really do feel that it is quite sufficient with the table spacing. So like I said, hopefully these measures aren't permanent ones and we can get through this, small last wave here and move on with some normalcy in the future.
Thanks so much for this, Matthew. Really appreciate you joining us and talking about all this.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Matthew Johnston is the owner of the Artisan Grill. Now, a couple of us here at CBC spent much of the day popping into restaurants and gyms and calling business owners. Many declined to comment on this subject. Business owners both for and against the passport didn't want to go on the record because of how contentious this issue has become. Some told us they were afraid of being harassed. Windsor's unemployment rate is currently the highest among major Canadian cities. The jobless rate sitting at 10.6%. It should mean that there's a big pool for employers to find workers, but the opposite is proving true for some. Reporter Amy Dodge spoke with one Windsor company struggling to find the employees it needs.
Sherlock Products needs 15 workers in labor and technical jobs. It has posted the positions, used several employment agencies, and still no one is applying.
There's a lot of people out there who don't want to go back to work, or they're not ready to go back to work. And it's not because they're lazy, it's because they've gotten a taste of, home life, being with their kids.
Workforce Windsor Essex aggregates job postings from all 54 job boards across the region and has seen jobs sitting vacant for several months.
Last month we had over 5,600 active job postings in our region, which is probably, again, a 2-year high in terms of what we've typically see. So we have more employers trying to recruit, and we have more and more sort of sectors, crying out for people.
The employment rate for Windsor is 10.6%, the highest rate among major Canadian cities. Kelly says during the pandemic, Sherlock Products had to shut down for 9 months. When the company came back online, some workers decided not to return.
I have to be a little more careful about the work that I take on, because if we don't have the skill set for a particular job, I have to be careful.
Early retirement and the microchip shortage has affected its company's ability to properly train younger employees and guarantee steady work for new hires. The company now needs to narrow its focus, producing fewer products better. Amy Dodge, CBC News, Windsor.
Cases of COVID-19 have started to decline in Windsor, Essex, but the Public Health Unit warns the region still has a long way to go. Today, 45 new COVID-19 cases were reported, along with 2 deaths, a man in his 70s and a man in his 80s. There are also 22 ongoing outbreaks, including one at the Berkshire Care Centre, one at Southwest Detention Centre, and one at a Kiwanis camp in Leamington. And 2 more cohorts dismissed today as well. One class from Cardinal Carter Catholic Secondary School in Leamington, and the other from St. Teresa of Calcutta Catholic Elementary School. It's now less than a week to Election Day, and the latest poll numbers put the Liberals and Conservatives neck and neck, indicating the prospect of another minority government. And those numbers have led to increasingly sharper attacks by the party leaders. CBC's Marina von Stackelberg has more on day 31 on the campaign trail.
Good job, Mr. O'Toole.
Outside of Ottawa, Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole says his plan for childcare, in the form of a tax credit, gives parents choice.
Our support goes directly to the families, not to other governments.
The Conservatives want to slash billions of dollars the Liberals set aside for universal childcare. O'Toole's plan doesn't address the lack of childcare spaces, but he says will help families immediately. The Conservative leader spent much of his campaign stop going after Liberal leader Justin Trudeau for sending Canadians to the polls in a pandemic.
Mr. Trudeau called a $600 million election and every day has tried to divide people. He has no plan, no future. All he has is blaming others.
Prime Minister Trudeau.
In British Columbia, Trudeau was flanked by former BC Green Party leader Andrew Weaver. He's endorsed the Liberals' climate plan.
We are the ones with the very best plan, laid out by experts and scientists across the country and around the world.
But Trudeau went after O'Toole on everything from his stance on gun control to private health care.
He's not leading, he's misleading. We need to stand strongly on a plan to fight climate change and grow the economy and stop the Conservatives from bringing us backwards.
Jagmeet Singh talked up the NDP's plan to improve internet and cell phone service.
We pay some of the highest fees in the world.
But instead was asked what role he would play in a Liberal or Conservative minority government.
Mr. Trudeau and Mr. O'Toole are fighting over who's worse. I can answer that question for them. They're both pretty bad. We have an alternative way to move forward.
A minority government does appear likely. The polls show the Liberals and Conservatives in a dead heat. Many voters have already made up their minds. Elections Canada says nearly 5.8 million Canadians voted early. That's a 20% increase from last election. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
Folks on Walpole Island First Nation are also paying attention to how the federal election is unfolding. Key sticking points include justice and reconciliation.
We want to focus on the truth and reconciliation initiatives across the land to educate the rest of Canada on our needs and the great hurt that we have experienced through the residential school system and the hurtful policies pounded down onto us in terms of oppression through the Indian Act and other activities by the federal government.
Trudeau said, like I said, I'm a residential school survivor. And there were for several, that reconciliation, there were 80 items, and Trudeau said they would address them. I think maybe they haven't even addressed 15 of them.
A lot of stuff needs to change in that government for us to be recognized. It's still, we're still back in that cowboy and Indian days where we're trying to be heard.
A live look at our city there once again. A hot day with a severe thunderstorm watch in effect this evening. Colette Kennedy, will be right here with us right after the break with your full weather breakdown. But before that, is this week's heat the last hurrah? We check in with some of you to see what you've been doing to soak up the sun. That's when we come back. If you were outside today, you'll know that it's been hot and humid. Now, while some may prefer not to sweat their way through September, other Windsorites were looking for ways to take in the heat one last time before the fall.
And right, you got a good day, you got to take advantage of it, right? You know what I'm saying? Even if you're not catching fish, at least you're out, you're doing something, right? You're not just sitting at home watching Netflix.
Well, the good stench of weather is being here before it's closed and enjoying it this summer, the wind and the heat.
It's just a beautiful, beautiful day today. We're enjoying it, and this is kind of like probably our last few days of beautiful weather, and we are very lucky here in Windsor to have our riverfront.
Yes, I am. Yes, I like cold and I like warm. Also, I take my time and sit in the car and then knit, crochet, make a few bucks. Yeah.
We are enjoying in riverside with the bird, with that people, beautiful people, great people, and you know that is very soon we are coming for winter. We can see that's beautiful weather. In winter, we have to stay home with the snow, with the shoveling, with everything.
Yeah, it gives us a chance to go out for walks. Plus, I heard that summer is going to be prolonged during the month of September and October, so which will be even better.
Now, this is the perfect moment to bring you in Colette Kennedy. I mean, Windsor weather, there's really nothing like it.
No, there's not. I love all the forecasters in that story, giving me ideas of what they think's going to be happening. Let me tell you, folks, today, not the last day that'll be summer-like. The long-range forecast is looking really, really good. So there's still time, even if next week fall officially begins, it's going to still feel summer-like. Summer-like conditions with active weather, too. All these regions here in a tornado watch, meaning conditions favorable for tornadoes to develop. Now, we're not seeing that back towards Windsor, Essex, or Chatham, Kent, or Sarnia region, but we do have the risk for strong storms to develop and move in, and we're seeing some of that development along this frontal boundary in Michigan, which we'll take a look at in a moment. So with that watch that is in play here, we could see if these storms kind of come to fruition. They are at other parts in the province. If they come to our area, then some heavy downpours, winds, some of those gusts could exceed 100 kilometers an hour. Lots of lightning strikes with this and small hail as well, and always the risk of isolated tornadoes. Current temperatures, 30 degrees, 27 Sarnia, Chatham, Kent, 27. Humidity, these are some of the ingredients for these storms to develop. Not just the temperatures and that sunshine and that energy, but the humidity, that buoyancy of the air as well. So there's the frontal boundary of the storms that have kind of developed along it. If we go in for a closer look, these are some of the cells where there are severe thunderstorm warnings in Michigan State. Those are pulling more in the same direction where we're getting all the really active weather here along the shores of Lake Huron. Had a tornado warning just a little bit ago for Perry Sound and Huntsville region. So that's where the really strong stuff is. We've still got more to come here as you get towards 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then pushing through to about 11. That's when we're going to see things rocking and rolling, and we'll be watching carefully here. But behind that system, let's get that through, and then things are going to clear tomorrow, or at least become more of a mix of sun and cloud, and then we get into some drier conditions. So really we'll be seeing that kind of clearing through the overnight hours. Still a few spotty showers or thunderstorms. There are your lows tomorrow. For those maybe who didn't like the extreme heat today, how about a little bit of a cool down, but short-lived? I did say summer doesn't want to leave us. So Thursday, 26, sunshine, 28 Friday, humidity kind of creeping back up again. And look at those numbers into the weekend. Looking really good there, Katarina.
Yeah, Colette, that honestly just makes me so happy to see. So thank you.
You can do your happy dance later.
Exactly. Or even right now. Why not? Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Now, when we come back, scientists are rushing to gather information about the planet locked away in ice core samples before global warming melts them away. Stay with us. An unvaccinated pregnant Alberta woman died from a COVID-related infection earlier this month. That was after being admitted to the ICU. And while questions have been raised about the safety of receiving a COVID-19 vaccine while pregnant, one expert says the evidence is clear.
We know COVID can cause serious infections and serious outcomes in pregnant individuals, and we know the vaccines are safe and effective in pregnant people. And the recommendation is if you're pregnant, you should be getting the COVID-19 vaccine or the mRNA vaccine to prevent these serious outcomes.
The doctor also points to guidance from Ontario's COVID-19 Science Advisory Table. It says compared to non-pregnant counterparts, pregnant people have higher morbidity and mortality, and also a greater likelihood of ending up in intensive care. We have some sad news from the entertainment world. Legendary Canadian comedian Norm Macdonald has died after a long, private battle with cancer.
Remember those commercials where the guy just tells you stuff you already know? Like this is one with William Devane, and he goes, "You like gold?" And you're like, "Yes, of course."
Macdonald got his start as a writer on The Roseanne Show in 1992 after doing the rounds of Canadian comedy clubs. He joined the cast of Saturday Night Live in 1993, and the next year he began his memorable stint as Weekend Update anchor until 1998. Macdonald said he was fired for making constant jokes about O.J. Simpson, a close friend of the then president of NBC. Macdonald went on to star in his own TV series called The Norm Show. He also guest starred on many other shows and appeared in a number of movies. Norm Macdonald was 61 years old. For decades, ice core samples taken from cold regions have helped scientists learn about the planet's past. Trapped gases offer a window into the changes in Earth's climate, spanning hundreds of thousands of years. But now there's a race against time. As global warming melts away ancient glaciers and ice sheets, all that accumulated information is vanishing with it.
Ice Memory is an international program aiming to retrieve ice core from non-polar sites. In a context of a great acceleration of global warming, we want to preserve the information for the future. We plan to have a lot of information out of these ice cores regarding the past composition of the atmosphere, the temperature of the past.
Glaciers and ice cores are probably one of our best archives of our past because they record not only the climate history, things like temperature, precipitation, and unfortunately with ice, right now, especially mountain glaciers are at risk, and those records will disappear. It's become a real challenge to find those places where you have a largely unaltered history preserved in the ice. A lot of the sites that we drilled earlier in my career, the glaciers are now gone. And unfortunately, most of the sites that we've drilled will disappear in the next 50 or so years. They all are telling the same story, that the climate is changing and changing very rapidly.
That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. That's also where you can find the latest on the vaccine passport rollout and everything you need to know about that. We're on social media as well, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. You all have yourselves a great night.